After an episode of Home Improvement, the Oklahoma City Thunder outclassed the Detroit Pistons, winning this game on the road, continuing their dominance of the Eastern Conference, and SGA continues to show you he's an all-time great.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO Thunderpod. On today's show, we're talking to you about this win over the Detroit Pistons for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was a game in which the Thunder outclassed Detroit, and they were able to pull away a win behind an MVP-level performance from SGA. And this game went perfectly by the script for the Thunder. Heading into it, whenever you know there's no Jalen Williams, you know there's no Chet Holmgren, you know there's no Aaron Wiggins, and then, oh yeah, I tell you, by the end of it, you're going to lose Lou Dort and Ousmane Dieng as well. This game got boiled down to a simple factor. Next man up. And it was going to have to be the next man up. It was going to have to be an MVP game from Shai. It was going to have to be a defensive game from OKC. And you checked all those boxes. And the thing about the next man up game from the Thunder, what I think it really is, well, Cason did have 20, and that's not his normal point total, right? So he did elevate his game, but he elevated it in such a way that was just a expansion of what he does every single night. So do your job, protect your craft, only now you're going to have a longer runway on the court. You're going to have a longer runway with the ball in your hands, and just keep playing your role, which is what the Thunder supporting cast did. And SGA was the one who took his game to another level, becoming just ultra aggressive and outright winning you this game. And it goes down to the details. Detroit got up by 10 points, but no more. And that's a big win for the Thunder. The fact that a lineup that doesn't include SGA, and you didn't have J-Dub to bail you out, you didn't have Chet to bail you out, you didn't even have Aaron Wiggins to bail you out. The fact that lineup only got down 10 to a really good Detroit team who's playing the best defense in the league since January. And when Shai came back onto the floor, you were down by 9 points and he took over from there. That was always how you were going to win the game. So you can bellyache about the second quarter all you want to, and the end of the first quarter all you want to. Yes, it was not appealing basketball. It was not good enough in the one sense. But by the same token, if you expected anything more than the Thunder to just keep it within striking distance, then I don't know what to tell you. If you bought into this idea that the Thunder down J-Dub, down Chet, down Wiggins on a secondary unit that already labors to score at times when those guys are healthy, if you bought into that idea, I've got beachfront property in Kansas to go sell you. I mean, that just was not going to happen. What you had to have happen did. They kept it within striking distance, and you got your MVP onto the floor. And the Thunder got up by 16 in their own right, largely because of Detroit's missteps. We'll talk about that coming up. But they survived a game on the road with 6 lead changes, a couple ties, and they beat a really good team. They won the Battle of the Glass 57-44. But ultimately, this was an even match. The biggest disparity was on the glass, but both teams had 17 turnovers. The Thunder shot 48% from the floor. Detroit shot 47%. OKC lost second chance points and fast break points, but they won, points in the paint. Now, the Thunder shot one more field goal than Detroit and one more three than Detroit. The Thunder also shot 9 more free throws than Detroit, but if you take away the 4 technical fouls and you take away the 4 intentional free throw shots, that's 8 free throws total that you're taking away. Your discrepancy is down to 2 or 1 with that free throw discrepancy. So to illustrate, this was like a mirror image game in the sense of chances, in the sense of opportunities, But this came down to who could adjust better and be more composed down the stretch. And OKC was just better. They adjusted to Detroit going with a full court press in the fourth quarter. They adjusted, right? Whenever the officials would let them play physical, they adjusted, and Detroit didn't do that good enough. Even down to the little details, like taking that 5-second violation when there's 0.3 on the shot clock. That was one of the most ingenious things to do, because most teams try to throw up there some lob, tip shot that you try to get. And in all actuality, best case scenario, you get a shot clock violation, which is the same thing as a 5-second violation in this regard. Worst case scenario, you try that lob and it leads to a Detroit fast break in a game that could have swung the balance, a possession that could have swung the balance of this game. Detroit couldn't hit their shots late. The Thunder had SGA pouring in buckets, and then whenever he dished it out to Cason Wallace, he knocked down that pivotal three. The Thunder outclassed Detroit at the end of the game. And that's to be expected because of where these two franchises are at right now. But to do it with all that context behind you of no Chet, no J-Dub, etc., it becomes even more impressive. And now OKC has 55 wins. And, I've got a bit of a half-baked idea, half-baked take, if you will. And I'm starting to wonder if the free throw discourse is actually helping Oklahoma City. That's right. This idea that the team who fouls third most in the league and has the second worst free throw attempts per game, that team has an unbelievable whistle. That's what the NBA is selling you. From its media personalities to its actual coaches. Shout out Chris Finch. Shout out Mike Malone. Like, the actual coaches are buying into this notion, which isn't rooted in nothing except for narratives. It's not rooted in context. It's not rooted in facts. It's not rooted in reality. And I wonder if that's helping the Thunder. Because this game, again, we just went through that if you take away the fouls that Detroit wanted to commit, and you take away the technical fouls, which is completely in Detroit's control, the free throw disparity was even in this game. This game was a physical contest. Each team was getting away with physical play. It was the style that both teams should want to embrace because both teams are so good defensively, because both teams have such players who, if you let Thompson be aggressive and you let Duren be aggressive and you let Stewart be aggressive and you let Cason be aggressive and you let the Thunder guys be aggressive, like, they feel good about that kind of game. This should have been the perfect style for both teams. And both teams had a portion of their game that they felt like they were getting over on the officials. Detroit was setting moving screens. They didn't get called for it. The Thunder adjusted. The Thunder were swarming the paint, swapping at every ball. Didn't get called for it a ton because of the tone that the referees set. And so even in a dead even game where Shai shot 10 free throws, but again, 4 of those were techs and 2 came off intentional fouls, Detroit lost their mind. They absolutely melted down in that third quarter. When in short order, you saw a technical foul issued to Cade Cunningham twice. You saw a technical foul issued to Dennis Schroeder. And that's what got Detroit in their biggest hole of the night. Because they outright melted down over something that's not real. This game was not poorly officiated but for either side. Did things happen that each side took advantage of? Certainly. But all in all, when it comes out in the wash, it was a consistent crew. You might not have liked the consistency of letting them play. Perhaps you would prefer ticky-tack fouls being called. That's subjective to whatever your personal play style is like, but these two teams should have loved physical play. And Detroit absolutely unraveled. And I think that when you're being told over and over and over again that you got to watch out for this Thunder team, man, they get to just hack you nonstop and they get every whistle. Then you get a group of people, which every single roster, all 30 rosters, including the Thunders, they all have 15 players who never in their life believe they've committed a foul. They could punch you in the nose and they do not believe it should be a foul. So it's human nature for these players to assume they did not foul. And when you're playing a team that everyone tells you, Man, the refs just love them. The refs just give them every call. Then if there's anything that you feel like you are on the wrong end of, it spirals you out of control. And then you get what happened tonight. And JB Bickerstaff was an embarrassment in the third quarter for his team. Egging on the crowd like you're an Allen Fieldhouse instead of an NBA event, NBA game was ridiculous. Not that he was egging on the crowd. I think that that's fun, but not at that time. It's not the right time. There's a time and place for everything. That was not the time and place. Because he was egging on the crowd to continue to chant "refs, you suck" as his star players getting thrown out of the game and will not stop talking to the officials. That's not what grown men do. That's not what mature coaches do. You go save Cade and keep him in the game. Because let me tell you, the crowd will continue to chant "ref, you suck" whether you flail your arms or not. But your superstar player will not stop talking to the officials without guidance from his head coach. And with your veteran being Dennis Schroeder on the court, he was no help. He got in the mix as well. You had no one there to settle him down, and that should have been your job. And in a game this close, where you did fight back, and you did show that resilience that Detroit has shown all year long, to not have him down the stretch, even in a game he was playing poorly in, it cost you. It absolutely cost you, because he's the type of player that even though up until that ejection he wasn't playing well, at any moment he can turn it on. At any moment he can help you win a game. And you lost him because you're busy worrying about the crowd. Because you're busy hoping that the thousands of people continue to chant "ref, you suck." Again, guess what? If Duren slapped Shai across the face and called him every name in the book, the arena would still chant "ref, you suck." They don't need your help on that. Your team needs your help. And you flip that around to whenever Isaiah Hartenstein got lippy with the refs, and he had his fill of what he felt like were unjust calls, and he was, I think, wrong in feeling that way. I think the refs did a good job. What did Shai do? Shai pulled Isaiah Hartenstein. You can see him say, "You're good, you're good, you're good. Stop all that. Stop all that." That's where the Thunder outclassed Detroit. They were just the more composed team. And that's not an indictment on JB Bickerstaff long-term. It's not an indictment on Cade Cunningham long-term. They're going to have to go through and figure this stuff out. Like, they're going to have to figure out, yeah, man, we made the mistake. We recognize the mistake. Let's go fix the mistake. That's the next step for them. But in a game like this, when you should have had a ton of advantages, you really neutralize them based upon this fantasy that the Thunder have a great free throw whistle. So I think that it was a good night for the Thunder. It was a good win for the Thunder, and I do wonder how much of the complaining is made more, right? Because everyone's going to complain, made more by this notion already going in, this preconceived idea going into a game that you've got to be on the defensive instead of just going out there and playing. You've got to be on the defensive for the whistle for the Thunder, where I think that could actually help OKC, because it certainly helped them tonight. There was no excuse for Detroit to unravel that way in that third quarter, which got them in the massive hole, which then won the Thunder the game. The Thunder's offense went cold in the fourth quarter again. If they don't get that cushion through no advantage, through no play of their own, they did nothing. The Thunder did nothing to earn that advantage in that third quarter, except for letting Cade Cunningham and Dennis Schroeder get technical fouls on top of the free throws that they got after those technical fouls, because of the actual foul call. That was a huge swing that the Thunder made one play on, drove to the basket. And without every single point tonight, you're not able to pull this one out, or at least you have a much tougher time pulling it out with the way that the two offenses played in the fourth quarter. Those are the little things that stack up and win you games. And who can be the most mature, who can be the most composed teams is the difference come playoff time. And this was a really good benchmark for the Thunder as we still, see everyone questioning if they can handle these situations moving forward. Coming up, let's talk SGA, who's proven to be an all-time great player. And let's talk Isaiah Hartenstein, Cason Wallace, how the Thunder got this win, and what tomorrow looks like with all of these injuries. But first, I want to say right now, better good friends over at FanDuel. Check out FanDuel today because March Madness is here, and with FanDuel, they're giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 in bonus bets if you use it on buzzer beaters or Cinderella stories, or even who's going to cut down the nets down. If you win your first $5 bet, you get $200 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com for new customers. Again, $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets as a new customer at FanDuel.com. You can go there right now, and if you're only into the NBA, don't worry. They have NBA lines for you over there, including tomorrow's slate of games, which sees the Thunder as 4-point favorites in Milwaukee on the second night of back-to-back. Go check out FanDuel.com today. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. This was an MVP win for SGA. Like this is a game that continues to bolster his case because it was all on Shai tonight. It was all on Shai tonight. With all due respect to the rest of this Thunder roster, there was not a single other player who demanded your respect on the court as a go-to scorer besides Shai in his minutes. And so you had 5 sets of eyes on Shai. You sent 5 bodies to Shai, and it wasn't enough. He still was able to go for nearly 50 points and win you this game by himself. And that's again, due respect to the rest of this roster, because to their credit, they didn't sink you in that stretch in the second quarter where you needed to rest him and allow him to be able to go for 38 minutes in this game, because he got that stretch in the second quarter, but they kept you within striking distance. They did your job, and ultimately SGA was a plus 18 and was able to get you this win. But when you look at SGA, who cares about the MVP in this regard? Because the voters are going to vote for who they vote for. Nothing that we say or do is going to sway their opinion, and we just have to see what the results will be. I've made it clear what I would do if I had a vote. I don't have a vote, so it doesn't really matter, the opinion on the MVP race. But 48 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, one of them the game sealer to Cason Wallace for 3, a block, a steal, 4 for 6 from 3, and 65% from the floor in a game that he had no one else to help take guys off of him defensively. He was it. If you're worried about how Shai's going to handle the attention, the double teams, the pressure, the defense in the playoffs, I'd point to 2 things. One, he averaged 32 points a night last year in the playoffs with a worse team behind him. Secondly, look at tonight. This has been the best defense since January 1st. They threw everything but the kitchen sink at SGA, and he went for 48 points on 65% shooting. And he willed this team to a win. He went 10 for 10 at the free throw line. You can whittle that down to 4 for 4 with the gymnastics of the technical fouls and the intentional fouls and stuff like that. So it's an extremely efficient night. But I think the most important thing from tonight is that you really need to appreciate what you're seeing from SGA. The MVP discourse, we're splitting hairs. These are 2 all-time great players. These are 2 players who a whole generation will put these 2 guys up against anybody. And that sounds crazy to say, be able to say in the moment, but you can see it. There's a generation of kids who in 20 years from now would put up Jokic and Shai up against any player in NBA history and say that's the best they've ever seen. That's how good these 2 guys are, irregardless of who wins the MVP this season. And you've got to appreciate what you're watching. Just appreciate that this guy is an all-time great player, and he's playing in Oklahoma City. Like, listen to the way that we talk about Shai. And find me a way to push back on any of this stuff, because you can't. SGA is a scorer who can create space in a phone booth. He has an incredible strength to his game, an ability to create space by bumping defenders off their spot and using brute force from a guard position. And he couples that strength with an unbelievable touch, a feathery touch at all 3 levels, specifically at the rim and the mid-range, where he's one of the best mid-range scores I've ever seen. He understands the angles to get to his spots better than anybody in the NBA. He plays with the best pace I've ever seen a player play with his misdirection stuff, with his start and stop stuff, his ability to stop on a dime, his ability to accelerate in a blink and go 0 to 100. The elevation that you've seen him make throughout his career has been stunning, because with each step that he goes up the ladder, your natural instinct has been to cap him there. When he hit his first All-Star team, your instinct was, okay, he's an All-Star, and this is going to be what he's going to be. Then he's all NBA, and he's top 5 in MVP, and he's runner-up last year, and you're like, okay, this is a really good career. This is a really good ceiling for him. And now this year, he leads the league in scoring. Another All-Star, another All-NBA, another top 2 MVP finish. It'll be his 3rd straight top 5 MVP finish. 2nd straight top 3. What he's doing is sensational. You have 5 bodies on the court, and it's not enough to cover SGA. It's not enough. He's evolved his game into being a true playmaker, into being a true 3-level scorer, and he's not done yet. He's just hitting his peak. He's not at his peak. He's not past his peak. He's just entering his prime. So just appreciate this. Don't get lost in the free throw discourse. Don't get lost in the MVP discourse. Take a step back and realize what you're seeing, because the roster on this Thunder team right now, the active roster tonight, should not have been able to overcome the dry spells, should not have been able to beat a team of this caliber. And it was SGA who, with just a shred of help, willed you to a win in OKC. And it's the fact of the matter of how many bodies you have to send to him when he has the ball or doesn't. That assist to Cason Wallace. They were willing to live with a Cason Wallace 3. A guy who shot 40% from 3 last year and who's finding his stride in the second half of this season, over letting Shai do anything. Because for the past 5 possessions leading up to that, he was taking ankles and names on his way to the rim. He was doing unthinkable stuff on his way to the rim. And so much so that he commands so much respect that in the dire straits of a game where you need an offensive rebound to help you pull off this win at home down the stretch, you've got so much attention on Shai, 28 feet from the basket, that you let up 2 back-breaking offensive rebounds. And you're not wrong for doing that. You should have all the attention on Shai. That's how good this guy is. And I get it. Shai's philosophy is you can't be an all-time great without winning first. We'll see if he ends up winning or not. But I'm here to tell you, in my limited life experience, one of the best scorers I've ever seen. He's an all-time great scorer. And you get to watch him in OKC. It's pretty special stuff. Pretty special stuff. And you wonder, does this win count for double the way it does for Jokic? Because if you look at this roster compared to Jokic's roster, the active roster tonight, you'd take Jokic's 10 times out of 10. So maybe this roster earns some more bonus points in the MVP. We're just kidding about that. Moving forward, let's talk Cason Wallace, Isaiah Hartenstein, and how the Thunder won this game and what's ahead against Milwaukee. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Monarch Money, go check them out today, because if you have ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track of where that money goes, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO. It gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Go check it out today, because it has an all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, just use Monarch to track your finances, track your spending, and plan for your long-term goals. Take control of your finances at Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Cason Wallace deserves a shout out, deserves a ton of credit, a tip of the cap for this game and for his well-rounded game as a whole. 20 points, 5 boards, 3 steals, 60% from the floor, 2 for 4 from 3. Cason Wallace's ability defensively cannot be overstated. It cannot be oversold to you. The hands are so quick between deflections, his ability to gap off and swipe his hand in the cookie jar without fouling, where it's like that play naturally, like whenever you're playing the gaps and you swipe at the ball, it naturally is high risk, high reward. But because Cason's so talented at it, it feels high risk. It feels high reward, no risk for Cason because he's so excellent at timing that and getting in and out and getting steals. And off of those steals, he's able to finish around the rim, but also show you that burst to get coast to coast. His speed with the ball is off the charts on the break. He's elevated this year. He's gotten hops galore, jumping out of the gym for slams. He's just been really good. He's been really good. And you've seen the maturing in his game, especially in small doses, right? Where this week, from the time that J-Dub left the game on Monday in the second half until now, you've seen Cason get to tap back into his point guard background, get the ball in his hands, duck his head down, get downhill, and it's been really good for the Thunder. He had 9 points in 5 minutes tonight. He ends up with 20. He was really good in that second half. Against Denver, nobody was great in the second half offensively. Cason was really good in that second half offensively and deserves credit there. Boston, he clearly stepped up and helped you get a win. Tonight, he stepped up and helped you get a win. And you see the well-roundedness of his game. And I think that he's the definition of a next man up kind of guy, an all-star in his role, and that role can change. If you need him to just be a 3-and-D guy, he can do that. If you need him to be on the ball, he can do that. If you need him cutting and making plays, he can do that. But he's always going to give you stellar defense, and you can kind of just sprinkle him around the offense as necessary in whatever role you need. And that's a very valuable asset to have for OKC. Isaiah Hartenstein deserves a ton of credit in this game with his dazzling passes. I mean, the one he dropped off to Lou, the one he dropped off to Cason, those plays stack up in a game where it's hard to score. Like, this was a more throwback style of game. It ends up being 113-107, but the two teams had different spells where they just could not score. And that was partly great defense. That was partly sloppy play. Little column A, little column B. But Hartenstein helped you a ton. Smooth out those possessions, smooth out the sequences, especially when Shai was off the floor, but even whenever Shai was on the floor. And he slams home the statement exclamation point win on the sideline out of bounds play where he was able to break free for a dunk. 12 points, 10 rebound, double-double, 5 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. He did it all tonight. I really loved his ability to get up into the body of Detroit's front court members, play physical, and really keep them off the glass, keep them away from the bucket defensively as best he could. I thought he did a really good job as like the lone traditional center defensively in this game for OKC. Isaiah Joe, double figures off the bench, the lone player to do that. But I think that the 3 for 11 should speak for itself in the sense of it was inefficient because it's 3 for 11. He had timely threes though, and some of those threes just come by a product of like somebody had to shoot. It's no secret that without Shai on the floor, you can't generate great offense, and somebody has to shoot. And then some of those misses can be attributed to, he makes that shot pretty often. He makes that shot pretty often. It just didn't fall in that sense, in that sequence. But I thought his most impressive play of the night was this cross-court skip pass from SGA into a step-back 3 from Isaiah Joe. He adds 4 rebounds and an assist to that total as well. Kenny Hustle, second straight night of him stepping up to do the dirty work like Steely Dan. 10 points, 5 boards, and assists, 5 for 9 from the floor. He was perfect inside the arc. I thought he scrapped defensively really well. He doesn't have the defensive stats to back that up, but you watch him play and the way that he was putting bodies on guys, even if he was not collecting the rebounds, which he did get 5 of them. But you go back and watch and how the Thunder won this rebounding battle, even though like Kenrich only got 5, you won the rebounding battle by him being willing to stick his nose in there, box guys out, and someone else cleans up the mess on the glass. He did a really good job in that. His hustle plays were off the chart. And I thought that he overall just had a more calming sense. Again, same note of the rebounds, only 1 assist, but when the ball found him, he knew how to be connective with the offense that really struggled tonight at times. So credit to Kenrich Williams and a credit to him for being able to step up, and he got to start tonight with all these injuries. A forgettable offensive night for Alex Caruso. He missed layups. He had some turnovers. I believe he just was out of sorts. We should say with Alex Caruso, who only had 1 turnover, but he was just again out of sorts. 0 for 4, only 1 3 in that 0 for 4 mix. He still gave you a lot defensively. He had 3 steals on the block, and he also just defended guarded his yard really well, as they say. Like, he was a really good defensive player. He wasn't good offensively. It's no surprise. It's no secret that he needs to be better offensively. He knows that. The Thunder know that. Like, he just needs to be better offensively. It was a bad night. I think that circumstances do change, though, right? Like, this is a guy who has not had a ton of consistent stretches of producing offensively, but it's much easier to produce offensively in Caruso's role when all your guys are back and you have the gravity from J-Dub and Chet and even Aaron Wiggins as well. So Caruso, yes, bad night offensively, but there's some context behind that you can really explain away or use to give a context or examples of why that was. Lou Dort left the game with an injury. He did the splits without meaning to. That's always not great. He was holding his hip or groin area. And then the Thunder have a back-to-back tomorrow, so we'll see if he ends up playing. The injury report will not come out until Sunday afternoon, so we'll see what that means for Lou's status. Ousmane Dieng also left the game with a calf injury. Again, we'll see that tomorrow afternoon for Ous's status. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Another bonus show in the books, as we still do it Monday through Friday, plus on the weekends whenever the Thunder play. Back tomorrow after the Milwaukee game, and until then, be good and be good to one another.